If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. For one, it's free. Two, there are a bunch of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Not only that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more places. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's really everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
How is it going, lovebirds? You are now tuned in to the podcast that brings you real relationship advice from real relationship experiences. I'm your host, Derek Brown Jr., the Good Company Relationships expert. And on today's episode, we are back in action. And I'm just going to interview our special guest, as always, very special, Adam Hendershott. And he has no idea what to expect. This is such a raw podcast.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah,
So, let's get into it. The topic of today is the first month of a new relationship. So,
I like that topic.
Yeah, I knew you would. I knew you would.
Yeah, man.
I don't even know what to ask you. I guess here we go. What has been like in your first month in a new relationship?
I would say, wait, say that again?
What has it been like in your first month into your new relationship?
I think it's been great. I think in any relationship, I think it's important, obviously. You have to build rapport. So figure out, I think the biggest thing is like ground rules, at the end of the day. Like you guys got to, you have to figure out, like what's important to one another, what is going to get the other person emotional, and kind of work around some of those things. But as far as me personally, like it's been great. And, me personally, historically I haven't been much of a relationship person. So, just to allow myself to be in that position is pretty cool.
So what would you say is different about this girl that stole your heart, for you not to be a relationship person in the past?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, so there's a part of me, like I'm a very independent person. I think that's an important thing to say first. So I think, what drew me away from relationships, particularly, in the modern age and in high school growing up and stuff, and even in college, there's this kind of dynamic in most relationships that I saw where, it was a lot of just people attached at the hip, and it was almost like, you almost start like sharing an identity, and it's like you almost lose a sense of agency, self-agency. And I never liked that idea, and whenever I started getting involved with someone, I would start feeling a loss of individuality. But I think that's all comes down to you and your partner having a certain level of self-esteem, having a certain level of clarity with what you want in your life, and then figuring out where, both of you both have your own separate vision, but where does that vision overlap, and how can you both take your unique, skills, resources, personality, and how can you combine that and make something great, And I think there's a great quote, and it's basically the idea that, a great relationship, it's not you and your partner looking at each other in the eyes. It's you and your partner looking forward to the future together and figuring out like, okay, what can we build together for the future? It's not for the other person. It's not because of an adoration of the other person. Like they're just another person. Like I think this is a big mistake a lot of men make out there. And I'm not saying women don't make this mistake, but I can only speak from a man's experience, obviously. And I think a lot of men out there, they have this glorified idea of what a woman is, and it's almost like they don't even look at them like they're just a human being, and there's like this, I think there's a lot of guys that are terrified of women out there, especially high value women.
Oh yeah.
I think there's tons of guys out there that are terrified of women, but even when I say terrified, what I actually mean by that is that they absolutely adore women. but because they adore them, it's so unattainable and so scary. It's terrifying.
It's such a fear. It's a captivating thing because it's like, wow, this is somebody I really want, or to attain that I have to be this kind of person, and because of that, and they feel so insecure about where they are right now. It makes
you self-conscious.
Yeah, and they feel like they can never be with this kind of woman.
But that's the whole thing is like, if you don't feel worthy, that means you probably aren't.
I mean, if you believe that about yourself, then
and that's the whole thing is like, there's a lot of guys that and that's a mechanism that's there for a reason. There's a reason that women have a guard up, and they in a way, I don't think this is the way it always works, but the way that it's been observed in nature, and the way a lot of times how dating dynamics work is men kind of have to prove that they're not an absolute monster. Because if you think about it, a lot of women have terrible experiences with guys that try to take advantage of them. Dudes that just all they want is sex, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they don't have the best intentions. And women naturally, over time they mature, and they, I think there's a transitionary period where they put up this wall, and they don't, and it's hard to get to the core of meeting who that person is, and they put up this front of like, I am this unattainable, perfect being. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of men look at particularly attractive women this way. They look at them as this unattainable type of like goddess, or like something. But in reality, they're just as insecure as you are.
Yeah, they're people. They're thinking, do I look pretty enough for this guy, or am I sexy enough, or all those things that makes a person look at their body and makes them think like, am I even good enough? So I mean,
and that's the thing. It's like, so if you're a guy and you're getting involved with a girl, and I think there's always this phase of like, okay, I'm meeting this girl, there's always that dating game, where it's like, it's kind of push and pull. It's like, kind of playing who's like hard to get, like who's going to chase, who's going to run away. There's always that dynamic there. But I think obviously that's kind of a childish game to play, but it's a part of who we are. It's a fun little game. But there's going to be a point where you're ready to move past that, and maybe she will be too. And I think the way that you kind of move past some of that and really get to who the authentic person is, and they might not be ready for the serious type of conversations that that you're ready to have. And I'm even talking to women that a lot of men aren't ready to have these kind of conversations. But talk about like, well, not even about like, don't talk about, oh, well, we have this in common, so then it's going to work, or we have that in common, so it's not going to, or we don't have this in common, so it's not going to work. Think about, like, you have to know what you want just out of life. Like, if you both know just, like, what you want, what you care about, what your values are, if there's overlap there and there's a potential that you can build a life together, why the hell not give it a shot?
Yep, I agree.
I think people focus on the wrong things when they're getting into relationships. They focus on the sex. They focus on the things that they have in common. They focus on what is similar about their partner, not necessarily what's different. Because, I think it's important that you find a partner that actually balances out what you're bad at. Because if you surround yourself with someone that's just like you, you're going to be losing a lot of perspective.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, but just for me, it's been kind of a learning experience, because I've already learned some things about myself. I've learned some things about, the person I'm seeing, and it's been a really positive experience so far, and it's I mean, I can only see good things from here. So,
well, that's amazing. That is definitely amazing. Also want to mention to all the lovebirds who are listening, we are recording in a car right now. So keep in mind, for this episode and future episodes, we're going to bring you extremely real and random podcasts. It may be with someone, a stranger to me, that had no idea they would be on the episode, and we could be in any place at any time. So just stay tuned and stay, keep your ears open. If the sound quality isn't that good, we apologize, but I promise you we're going to be bringing you a lot of good content. So back to the questions. Adam.
Yes.
So what is the thing that you feel like kept you from being a relationship person in the past?
Well, I mean, I would say the main thing, like I already kind of touched on that, the main thing is that, I value a lot of time by myself, and to be honest, like I'm at a place in my life right now where quite frankly I have to be selfish, and I have to invest most of my time into building the lifestyle and the in working on the goals that I've set for myself, and it's really that simple. It's like I don't really have time for a relationship where someone expects me to be with them a lot of the time, and I just want someone that respects my time, and I think everyone should look for something like that. But I think the biggest thing is that's a good question. That's a really good question. I mean, I don't really know what has kept me from being in relationships.
I mean, I only say that because, like, I've known you for a little time now, and I've never seen you, so in tune with another person. I've heard relationship stories in the past, but like none of these women, had that thing that you felt was, and I don't want to say good enough, but you're definitely not the person that was settled. So when you say things like, I'm not looking for a relationship where I'm giving them all of my attention and focus, because obviously you're working on yourself, you're working on your business. I think that's a little bit different, because that means that the women in your past were seeking some kind of attention from you. Maybe a lot of it, maybe they're looking for like these certain amounts of text, or they're looking for, or they probably felt like you were a different kind of guy, with like an asshole, because you're distant, not because you're purposely doing it, but because you were actually investing in yourself.
Yeah, I've thought about that before too, and it's like I don't want to come off like a just complete dick, but like I think it's important, like just setting boundaries for anyone, not even non-romantic relationships, just setting boundaries and understanding, hey, what's important to me isn't necessarily what's important to them. So we have to respect what's important to other people, and understand that that we don't all have the same value systems. We all think other things are more important than And the important thing is to like communicate those things, and like if that you don't meet those, then to be able to right. Well, and some people, they want to hear, like, just this is one example. Some people don't care about this, but some people want to verbally hear every once in a while, hey, I care about you, or hey, I appreciate you.
I'm thinking about you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about you.
I miss you.
Yeah, and some people really appreciate that, and me personally, like I appreciate that when I hear it, but like
you don't care.
No, I don't care. Like it's not like I would never just be sitting and thinking like, oh man, like I wish someone would think about me.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But like, so that's not important to me, but like if you're with someone that appreciates that, take note of that. And just when you think about it, just send a text,
send them
or
a
something.
Text.
Just
do the thing,
something simple. It's
that
like
makes them
exactly. And for
happy.
me, another example, it's like me personally, like I don't like making the bed. Like it's something that I just don't care about. I'm gonna mess up the sheets anyways. But if your partner really just likes the bed made, just make the damn bed.
Yeah, man, it's a small sacrifice.
Make the damn bed, and it's like, it's just something small you can do. Even And that's the thing. You have to stop being selfish in relationships, and like think about, okay, it doesn't matter what's important to you. It doesn't matter what's important to you.
And you can even think of it,
and just with
way,
little
like,
things like. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, just piggybacking off what you were saying, like, even if you wanted to be selfish, like, the most selfish thing you can be doing is being unselfish, because if you're doing all these things for a return, like, you're not only investing in someone that you truly care about, but that's going to come back to you 100%. Like, if you're making the bet for them, if you're the one who's doing the things that they care about, like, what do you think is going to do for you? Like, they're going to do those things for you in return, the things you enjoy, the things you do like. And it's a small sacrifice when you truly find someone you want to spend your quality time with,
Yeah. And I think that's sound advice for anyone that's getting into a relationship.
Any relationship, any non-romantic, romantic, just meeting someone, like, figure out what this person loves, figure out what this person likes, and, like, be unselfish, help them out, figure out their love languages, and just go crazy on those, because I mean, life is too short to be playing around with these relationships that are just playing with your emotions. You're playing with other people's emotions, and at the end of the day, you just missed out on another person that you probably could have been with, and definitely don't settle. But when you find that person that you feel like, okay, this is somebody I feel like I can build with, then hey, like, do the things you got to do to make that shit work for real.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is, I think people have an idealized vision of what they think love is like or what relationships are like. And I don't believe that the ideal relationship exists. I don't even believe that love can conquer everything, and just, like, love to me is not enough. Love isn't enough for anything. Like, love isn't enough to save the world. Love isn't enough to save a relationship. It's never enough. Because when you think about it, love is cheap. Love is just a feeling that you have. It's a completely irrational and
unexplainable.
And the thing is, it can be unconditional. A mother can love her son even though her son is a serial killer or a murderer or whatever. That is completely irrational. So to me, it's like, love is never enough. Women love their husbands who beat them. Love is never enough. You know what is enough? Love and respect.
That
respect.
That thing.
Because respect, to me, like, I don't know. Like, there's some people believe different things, but I think to a certain degree, respect is earned. I think it's important to give respect and trust up front, and then if they break your trust, you're going to lose respect. And I think love is never enough. You have to have respect and love. And, like, and if everyone starts with 100 points of trust, and then you tell some lies, and then your partner finds out, whether or not they do, you go down to 80.
Yeah.
And it's like,
or 0.
Now your level of respect for them is also going down, and they're not gonna, if your partner doesn't feel respected, they're definitely not gonna feel loved.
Nope.
So it's like, even though you might feel love for your partner and you still victimize them in some way, you still have to respect your partner. You still have to respect what they want. And I think there's a lot of controlling people out there that think that they can control someone and that the other person should be okay with it because they love them. And that's just unrealistic. And everyone's an individual. No one wants to be, some people, I don't want to say no one wants to be controlled, but as a general rule, people don't like to be controlled, Everyone's an individual. So it's like...
And like, if you are, this kind of person who is doing these things to people, and then it backfires on you, or you find out, okay, you really do love this person finally decides to leave you, and you feel like, oh, wow, I just missed out on something that was truly great, that's going to really, like, fuck you up. That's going to put you in a whole different place. Because then you're going to feel fully responsible for missing out on something that was really good for you. And what's that going to do for you mentally in your next relationship? You know, are you going to try to treat the next person right? You know, and how does that make that person feel when they see you treating that next person right? It's like it becomes like such an unhealthy thing for both sides when you play these games, when you treat these people disrespectfully. You know, it's not a win-win at all.
And again, I think it just comes down to being completely honest about with what you want. Not even like what you want, meaning like, hey, like in the context of a relationship, when I say that, saying what you want, a lot of people would assume that means, hey, I want you to start doing something differently. No, it's like, no. It's, no, what do I want out of my life? Because, you know, the fact that your boyfriend doesn't pick up after himself, that's something that you guys can figure out. You know what I mean? Like, as people focus on these little problems that annoy them. It's like, if you decide to spend the rest of your life with someone, do you think that you won't be annoyed by them? Of course you're going to be annoyed by them. Like, I've never spent a lot of time with anyone who didn't start annoying me in some way. But what can you build to make it worth it? What redeeming qualities make it worth it about that person? You know? And to me, that's what it's all about. It's like, you're gonna annoy the shit out of your partner too. It's like you're an annoying fuck too. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone's annoying. So it's like, you know, don't focus on the little things that turn you off about the other person. Focus on what you want out of life. Make sure that, you know, your partner knows what they want out of life. You know, you have a vision for your future. You have responsibilities and goals, and then figure out, like, how can you combine your lives in a useful way and help each other out? You know? That's what it's all about. Like, you know, it's never, and it's, I think a lot of it is too, it's like having the ability to keep your own identity in your own life, but then create a new identity with that person, but still keep your old identity.
Yep.
Because, I don't know, the way I look at like a family, like my family, for example, the Hendershott family, like our nuclear family, like mom and dad, myself, Zachary, Emma, and Elizabeth. Like, we have our own like identity. We have our own little rituals, our own routines, our own foods that we eat, our own phrases that we use, slogans. It's just like anything else. It's just like its own little identity, its own little life. So it's like, but I realized what made that work is both my parents, they have their own career, they have similar values, there's a good amount of overlap, you know, of what they care about, but obviously, you know, they're not exactly the same. You know, they have some different interests, and, you know, there's personality traits that are very at odds, you know, that make them at odds. But I think because they learn to become comfortable with their own insecurities and their own things that are bad about themselves, they're able to forgive other people's shortcomings easier. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people aren't even, they're not even aware, or in like, they haven't forgiven themselves for the bad things about themselves and the annoying things about themselves. So how can you expect to forgive anyone else for their annoying things or their shortcomings if you can't even forgive yourself?
Yep, you're always the victim.
Yeah.
They're always the wrong person. Yeah. They're always the one that's not right for them. So
it's like, focus, like literally be selfish. And then like you'll start seeing other people in a different light. Like, figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and figure out how you can leverage those. Minimize your weaknesses. Surround yourself with someone who, you know, who is good at your weaknesses. And a lot of times what you're bad at might be what you don't like. It might be what annoys you. But you have to remember that what you don't like, you still need. I mean, there's some ways of thinking, some ways of being, some ways of behaving. Like, for example, if you have a very emotional partner and you're very logical, maybe you need some fucking emotion in your life. Maybe you need an emotional perspective.
You need that balance.
Maybe you need a logical perspective. You know, it's like, flip the other side of the coin. Maybe it feels uncomfortable and annoying, but that probably means you're growing.
And that's a side of yourself that you most likely haven't been in touch with.
Yeah. It's like, it's got to be important if it makes you uncomfortable. It's like, nothing that's important ever felt comfortable. You know? Like, what's comfortable is what you know. It's like, what good is that? You know?
Well, that was an amazing first episode for season 2 of the Good Relationships podcast. Do you have any last words for the lovebirds?
Man, that's it. Just respect each other, love each other, and that's enough.
All right, lovebirds, thank you for tuning in. Glad to be back. Like I said, season 2, we're going up to anybody who's ready. Real, raw relationship advice. Thank you as always. Stay blessed, not stressed.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Derek.